Welcome back to another episode of the CEO Hotline. And this is going to be me doing a retake because maybe you caught my live stream on TikTok, but surprise, surprise, I forgot to hit the record button on Riverside. So we're going to record this one again. And this episode is another solo episode, but it's where I'm giving you a behind the scenes look of my own journey, of my own journey in entrepreneurship, how I even got to this point of launching my own business, how we've got to build our community of more than 100 incredible women, and we're hosting the events that we're hosting now, how I got into private mentorship. I know how important it is to really get the behind the scenes of who you're going to be investing in. And if you've been listening to this podcast episode, if you've been in my world, then you probably already know that I do offer private mentorship as not only a business mentor, but as a visibility strategist. And you deserve to know who you would be investing in if you do choose to work with me, and the visibility that I've been able to create for myself. Because when you are investing into someone, into something, you want to make sure that the person that you're investing in has done the work, right? That can actually give you the results that you're looking for, has done the things that you want to do, and has evidence of that in some capacity, whether it's transferable skills from a previous career or what they've done for themselves in their own business. So let me take you all the way back. I knew that I would be an entrepreneur since high school. I have had the pleasure of, or the opportunity to really reflect on where this initial itch came from. And I wasn't surrounded by entrepreneurs when I was younger. And I feel like had I been surrounded by entrepreneurs when I was younger, my trajectory would have been wildly different. But we'll save that for a little later on in the conversation. But the more chances I've had to really reflect on it, I do remember my mom sharing a couple of times that when she was younger and she was in the Philippines, she would be at the markets and would be selling different things at the market. So there probably was a sense of that instilled in my DNA of we do the things, we sell the things, we are entrepreneurs at hearts, even though I do believe coming from her perspective, maybe it was more of a survival thing. You know, we're just selling things to get by. We're going to the markets, we're showing up in the fields and whatever it is that she did. And we're selling things just so we can make a living. Whereas now the worlds that I'm in and the women that I'm surrounded by, yes, we need to make a living. And of course, we want to make money in our businesses, right? That's a big part of why we have businesses. But there's also so many more layers to it in terms of fulfillment, alignment, doing something that you genuinely love. So there's a few different things from my childhood that's really carrying on through to the work that I'm doing today. One being, yes, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur since high school. It took me a while to get there, but I'll share more of that in a second. I grew up in a very creative household. So whether it was events that we were hosting or me just like redoing my room every month, we would get creative. We would be resourceful. We would do a lot of things with our own hands and with our own imagination. And we were on top of it. So me and my sister and my mom, we move quick. We get things done. We can handle a lot of moving parts. That's just who we are in our nature. And I honestly am I love that part of myself. And then three is also that I've always believed in just doing something that you love. And that it's never been about the money. It's really about doing something that you're passionate about and doing something that lights you up, and the money will come. If you haven't tuned in to, I believe it was episode number 4, where how does passion and profit actually marry together and how do those work together? Go take a look at that episode because I reflected back on what that notion was of do what you love. Do what you love, and then the money will come. And I think, yes, to an extent that's true, but there's also so much more conversation to be had around that. So I'll make sure to link episode 4 in the show notes so you can take a listen to that if you haven't already. It's a really great conversation, especially for my fellow mission-driven, impact-driven women out there that just want to serve and help other people. I get it, yes, but you also need to make money along the way. So if that feels like you, go tune into that episode after you tune into this one. Anyways, fast forward to me being in high school, me knowing I was going to be an entrepreneur. I genuinely thought I was going to be a fashion designer. I envisioned myself as being this big household brand name in fashion. Spoiler alert, that's not where I am today, and that's okay. I do believe that if I was surrounded by other entrepreneurs, if I, especially designers, I would have had more inclination to actually go and do the thing and put myself out there and be very immersed in that world and take action towards that. But because I wasn't surrounded by that, and I genuinely don't know where that urge came from, I just knew that I loved fashion growing up.
I want to take a pause and ask you a really quick question. Are you still building your business in isolation? Listen, you do not have to do that anymore, okay? I built Horolo, our women's entrepreneurial community, because I knew I didn't want to go into business alone, and I'm tired of seeing other women entrepreneurs still building their business alone. This is a community based on real connection, real resource sharing, and a network of women who actually want to see you win. We're not just here for the superficial follows online and the surface level conversations. We have virtual workshops, mastermind calls, a members only platform, and we also host in person events here in the Bay Area, and we're continuing to expand across the US every month. If you're ready to stop building solo and start surrounding yourself with people who get it, then join us at horolo.com/apply. That's HERROLO.com/apply. That link is also going to be in the show notes. Okay, let's get back into it.
I didn't really do much with it. But there was a moment that I was particularly feeling this urge, and I went home, went to Beverly's, back when Beverly's was still a thing. I don't even know if it's open anymore. Bought a plain t-shirt, bought some fabric paint, created a stencil at home, and then literally designed a t-shirt from my bedroom. My brand name, it feels a little cringy now saying it out loud. My brand name at the time, brand in quotes because it really didn't turn into anything, was Jugarap. So it was a combination of my last name, Jugarap, and my favorite animal at the time, which were giraffes. So Jugarap. And I literally painted this t-shirt with an image. It was a silhouette of a giraffe and a person sliding down the neck of the giraffe. And that was my very first design. It's not very cute. I think my brother actually still has it to this day, somewhere in his closet. But I was so proud of it. I wore it the next day to school, and I actually had a handful of people verbally expressing that they wanted to place orders with me. And that in and of itself is pretty freaking cool. So I went home, had a list of verbal orders and intention for people to buy and invest in what it is that I was capable of creating. But back then, I was also still very much in perfection mode, still very much in people pleasing mode. But particularly this perfection side of me kept me from moving forward because that evening I was staring at that shirt for I don't even know how long and trying to figure out there was just something quite not right with it. And I knew that I refused to put anything out into the universe that wasn't quote unquote, quote, perfect. And the more I ruminated on it, the further away I got from figuring out what was wrong with it and what I could do to perfect it. And so, long story short, I ended up doing nothing. I didn't create more shirts. I didn't fulfill the orders. I didn't make any money. I didn't turn it into a business. And that was kind of almost the end of my entrepreneurial journey in that sense. For that particular brand, Jugarap started and then immediately stopped, and it brought me nowhere. So, friendly reminder to everyone that's still in perfectionist mode, I need you to lovingly get out of that ASAP. Anyways, even still, even though that didn't work, I would still take on all of these little side jobs that kind of scratched that entrepreneurial itch for me. So I used to sell Stella and Dot. It's this incredible jewelry company. And back then they had independent stylists. I was an independent stylist and I would do trunk shows. I would speak to event hosts or just women in my network, in my neighborhood to see if they were interested in hosting trunk shows. I would go bring my jewelry, set it up all on their dining tables and whatever, and basically sell the jewelry. And I had so much fun doing that. And it was like the whole like business in a box, MLM type thing. I know a lot of people have a lot to say about MLMs. I also have a lot to say about MLMs, but in a positive light. So if that's something that you're interested in diving in, we could totally save that for another episode in the future. Drop a comment if that's something that you're interested in hearing more about.
Okay, I know the episode is just starting to get juicy, but before we keep going, I want to tell you about A Woman's World. It's Harolo's annual summit, one full day, high impact, bringing together founders, coaches, creatives, and women who are actively building something meaningful. Every year the event grows, and every year the energy in that room is something I cannot even fully put into words. You have to be there. We're talking curated speakers, hands-on workshops, and the kind of room where you leave with real clarity, real connections, and real momentum. This year's theme is Level Up. Level up your personal brands, your leadership, and your marketing and sales, and everything we have planned for this year is built around that. If you've been waiting for a sign to get in the room, this is it. Grab your seat through the link in the description, and if you want the best deal in the room, join as a Harolo member first, because members get up to 40% off on top of the original early bird pricing, so you're stacking your savings from day one. Links for both are in the description. Okay, back to the episode.
But I loved my experience with Stella and Dot. And part of what I loved about it was that I got to be surrounded by so many incredible women that were also doing the same thing, that were trying to build their Stella and Dot business, that were selling the jewelry, that were hosting the trunk shows, that were trying to find more leads for women interested in hosting these trunk shows. I went to their conferences. I went to one in Florida, I think, or Tennessee. I don't know, but had so much fun at just being in that energy because I wasn't previously exposed to that. I didn't have that network around me before. And this goes back to me saying in high school, I feel like if I had that, my life would have been wildly different. I would have gone down a completely different path because I would have seen what was possible for me and I would have had the resources and mentors to support me as I continued taking steps in that direction. But with Stella and Dot, it was an incredibly eye-opening experience to recognize that there are other ways of doing life. And it just felt so aligned for me. Like, yes, this is what I'm meant to do. This is where I'm meant to be. And that was always kind of just a side gig for me. But I would still, even in my quote unquote real jobs, I would still take on jobs that felt like I had some kind of autonomy over what I was doing. I used to be a designer for Closet World. So I would go to these appointments, go to people's homes, design the closets, um, have those conversations and negotiate sales. That was fun. I was a merchandiser for Macy's and I had pretty much the entire juniors department to myself. So making things beautiful, allowing things to be creative, kind of moving at my own pace and really taking lead and control over a department also scratched that itch for me. And that continued to carry on. So fast forward, I found myself a mom. I was working in the government and then I was a new mom. And in that moment or in that season of my life, and all of my fellow moms can attest to this, once you're a new mom, there's a season after having given birth and navigating postpartum where you try to find your way back to yourself. And creativity was that way back to myself for me because I had grown up in a creative household, right? And I would sell the jewelry or express my creativity through fashion. And I would do these DIYs. And it just became a natural next step for me as a new mom. So I would do all these DIYs and it worked well because I had my daughter. And so I would do some DIYs for her nursery. I would do DIYs for her birthdays. And because I loved being in this space where I could create and also not just create, but ship those creations, share it with the world. I did have a YouTube channel from back when I was selling jewelry and, I would share like my jewelry hauls. So I kind of brought that YouTube channel back to life through these DIYs, through this new avenue of creativity. And so that was also kind of just like another avenue where I was exploring that sense of entrepreneurship and being able to create something for me and something that was also bigger than me. Fast forward some more, had my second daughter, and I had this idea to create a jewelry organizer because of my time in Stella and Dot when I had amassed so much jewelry. I didn't want to get rid of all the jewelry. A girl loves options, but I had like 7 different jewelry displays that were overtaking my counter space, and I was tired of looking at it all, and we were living in a small apartment at the time, and I and shelf space is incredibly valuable. So being very detail oriented, being very DIY lover, being very solution oriented, I was like, okay, how do I create a better solution for myself where I could store my jewelry? I could still see everything because I didn't love the idea of a jewelry box where I'd have to just dig through things. That's where things get lost. That's where things get tangled. Nobody wants that. And all of the jewelry organizers that I would see online that I was just like, let me just buy a better solution, they were either far too chunky or they were like incredibly old school and very obviously organizers and completely not my style. So again, given the fact that I was very solution oriented, I love to create, I love to design, I designed my own jewelry organizer. It was in the middle of the night when I was feeding my second daughter and I was doing my best brainstorming work at that time. And I said, okay, if I'm going to create this, it was totally just meant to be for myself. I started brainstorming, how am I going to do this DIY? How am I going to film it for more content for my YouTube channel? And the more that I brainstormed it, the more that I realized the actual merit of the design and thought, wow, people are going to love this. Like, it is not just me that's going to love it. Like, this is phenomenal. Everything that I'm envisioning is phenomenal because I'm going to turn it into like this really cool flip book style where it's like this very tangible lookbook or catalog that you have where your jewelry is going to be affixed to the pages. You could flip through the pages, but you can still see everything. Everything is still hyper organized. And when you close it up, it looks like a coffee table book. So you could style it on your vanity, style it on your coffee table, and it would just fit seamlessly into your home, i.e., it's very chic on the outside and it's very discreet. So my brain was just lighting up that night. The next morning, I hit the ground running, and I had never experienced what it's like to be in manufacturing. So I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, this is something. There is something here. We're going to hit the ground running. I started Googling it all over the place of how do I find a manufacturer. I literally created a prototype out of an old diaper box, old notebook. I took the spiral out of an old notebook. I had a few rubber bands that I cut up and then stapled to the cardboard from the diaper box. And I even like cut out a scrap piece of fabric from one of the girls' onesies that they no longer fit into. And I took the button and turned that into like a locking mechanism for this prototype that I created. And I still have that prototype to this day. I actually showed everyone it at Summit last year. And I think it's still pretty cool. But anyways, showed my partner. He didn't really understand it, but I didn't really expect him to. All I knew is that I was so excited about it. So I started Googling, like, how do I even get into manufacturing? How do I get connected with manufacturers? How do I actually put this in production? Made a few calls, sent a few emails, eventually got connected to someone who connected me to a supplier overseas, because something that I learned is that a lot of the manufacturers here in the US, they're generally like, they're here for tech products or more of like plastic engineering, as opposed to what I was wanting to create with my books, where it is like fabric bound on the outside. There's a lot of mechanisms on the inside. Apparently, it's a very complex project, which looking at it, you wouldn't really think so, but apparently it is. Okay. That manufacturing life, story for another day. Anyways, I hit the ground running with that. And I had to have this very intentional conversation with myself of, okay, if I'm going to launch this business, we really need to go all in. Like, we're going to take this seriously. We need to start building an audience for it now, even though I didn't physically have the product in hand. And I don't know where I got this business savvy from, but luckily I already knew I didn't need to be the one just creating my audience from complete scratch, because I knew that there were already audiences that existed that were full of my ideal customer. And so I launched the Instagram page. Of course, it was just family and friends at the time. I had not built an audience. Nobody knew who I was. But I started reaching out to all of these smaller jewelry brands and basically said, hey, I would love to collaborate. I want to host a giveaway. It's going to be me, you, and a couple of other brands. You guys pick a piece of jewelry. We'll make it into a cute bundle thing, and then we'll have the giveaway. This was back when giveaways were a very big thing on Instagram. And basically, to enter the giveaway, you'd have to follow all of those accounts, right? Including my own. The crazy thing was, I didn't even have product in hand. I was literally just facilitating these giveaways as I waited for this manufacturing process to be over, as I waited for my inventory to be shipped to me. And along the way, I was able to start bringing in more people into my own audience because I tapped into audiences that were already proven to be interested in jewelry, spend money on jewelry. And if they had jewelry, of course, they would be interested in purchasing an organizer for that jewelry. I didn't sell or manufacture jewelry myself, so it was a perfect win win. From there, I really recognized this deeper craving that I had for connection and for genuine relationship with some of these business owners that I was collaborating with. So, of those women that I brought on for these giveaways, the ones that I really connected with, the ones that I really resonated with, I reached out to them and asked them if they'd want to do like a fun interview with me for YouTube. That ended up turning into our official Empowered by Women podcast, but it also showed me the power of taking a one off partnership and creating more long term partnerships from it, creating more strategic partnerships for it, but bringing more longevity to what we are able to create together and really maximizing those relationships and those visibility touch points that we can create from a single point or event or connection. In this case, a giveaway. That one giveaway then turned into a podcast episode that we could then repurpose into newsletter content, into social media content, and give more and more visibility touch points for people to catch on to what we were doing together. And then go listen to the podcast, go watch the YouTube channel, or come back and follow me on Instagram. That also showed me, for one, how much I love podcasting, how much I do actually love talking, depending on what it is that we're talking about. Because anyone that knew me from my past, I can be very quiet. I can be very antisocial. I can be incredibly introverted. But when it comes to things like this and talking about entrepreneurship and talking about business and talking about motherhood, I can ramble and ramble all day. So not only did podcasting show me the love of speaking that I had, and also show me how skilled I am at speaking, if I can humbly say that. Um, I did I do feel like I have a natural knack for it, and I have received a lot of great feedback in terms of my own speaking and presentation and interview skills, thanks to this world of podcasting. But I've also gotten to build so many incredible relationships from the women that I brought onto my own podcast or from being on other people's podcasts. And that has opened so many more doors as well and continued to compound on the value of building relationships. Relationships are your number one asset as a business owner. The more intentional you can become about building relationships, the better. And the more intentional you can become about not only building those relationships, but truly maximizing them, turning them into true partnerships, turning them into strategic partnerships, and really having conversation and creating structure around what can we do together so that we can both really get the most out of it. That's where it becomes even more game changing, where you don't just have this incredible network, but you have this incredible network that opens you up to endless opportunity and endless more connections. So, fast forward a few months later, we had launched Book of Bijou. Again, that inventory, the manufacturing, we'll save that for another episode. But in having these podcast episodes and in recognizing how much I love being in this space, how much I love being in community, how much I wanted to create that for myself, and how much I knew if I'm going to go into business, I want to have the most incredible network. I want to know everyone and I want everyone to know me. I launched unofficially Empowered by Women, which is now called Rollo. We've rebranded as of March of 2026. But if you didn't know us prior to that, we were called Empowered by Women. I launched Instagram early 2022 and literally referred to it as the community extension of Book of Bijou. had literally no intention for it to turn into a business. It was something that I wanted to do for fun. It was also something that I could funnel my energy and time and attention towards while waiting for my manufacturer to get our inventory over to me. And so we hosted one market in May of 2022, had 20 vendors, a few women speakers. I got to bring my two girls at the time, and that was an incredibly surreal and amazing experience because I was able to expose them to other women doing incredible things, building businesses, following the things that they were most passionate about, and that really lit them up. Again, something that I didn't have exposure to when I was younger. So I loved being able to do that for them. And that event, whether I knew it or not at the time, really solidified us as this emerging community. And again, no intention for it to turn into a business. I was just doing it for fun. I honestly, a part of the reason why I decided to host the event, the vendor market, was yes, because I wanted to be able to get these incredible women around me in person. But also, I had this product line. I had inventory in hand by that point, and I knew in order to make sales, I needed to get it in front of people. And I am one of those people that for some reason, instead of like wanting to apply to different vendor events and then get rejected, I thought it would just be easier to host my own because then I could lock in my own spot. I knew I would be confirmed in, and I just felt like for some reason that was the easier thing to do. So there was this multifaceted reasoning behind it. Um, but again, that moment changed a lot of things for me, even though it wasn't readily available at that moment. But I had a lot of women saying, this is what we need. Like, this is the energy that we need. These are the spaces that we need. These are the opportunities that we need, because it was a women's empowerment market. That's literally what we called it. And so many of the women there resonated with that mission and also shared this craving for community, the same craving that I had, the same craving for connection, for deeper connection, for true relationship building, to be in a space with other women. And so they would say, like, you have to do this again. And I said, well, this was just for fun, so I'll see you next year. We hosted one more event in 2022 towards the end of the year. It was a small networking event, maybe less than 10 women. And again, that just like this conversation kept coming up of we need more of this. But before the second market, we did launch our directory. Again, being very solution oriented, very creative thinker, very strategic thinker. I said, you know what? There are these people that are messaging me on Instagram because of this incredible market that we had. And now they're asking me, oh, do you know anyone that sells this? Do you know anyone that sells that? And so I would say, you know what? I would go down this Instagram rabbit hole, clicking on hashtags, trying to find the vendors, because the vendors that we had in that market were amazing. Everyone loved them. But it took me a while to find them, right? And I would, go to different market accounts on Instagram and see who were their vendors. Who do I want to reach out to? Um, and wanted to create a better solution, wanted to make it easier to find and support and connect with these local vendors. So that's where the idea of the directory came to be. And that ended up turning into a membership. Of course, there were other directories and marketplaces that I looked up to see, does anything like this exist? But I did also see gaps in the markets. For one, some of these directories and marketplaces, they were really expensive to get into, or they were kind of exclusive in terms of who they were welcoming in. And maybe there was a capacity, like we only welcome in 200 people a year or whatever that looks like. We only feature 200 people a year on our marketplace, on our directory, or it's hyper local. Or another thing that I noticed was that they just weren't very diverse. And of course, as a woman of color, that's something that was important to me. So I said, let me create that. Let me make it really easy. Let me make it very user friendly. Let me make it also very financially accessible. And that's something that I carry on through this day of, I don't believe that you need to be able to invest an arm and a leg just to get an ounce of support, just to feel like you have a community that you can lean into, just to be able to find what resources and opportunities are available to you. And so from the business sense, of course, we couldn't just make it free. I was going to be pouring a lot of time and attention into this, but I did make it low ticket. If you ask anyone around you, Any kind of business coaches, mentors, consultants, they would probably highly, highly, highly discourage you from offering something low ticket if you did not already build up an audience or have something high tickets to counter that. And I honestly probably would agree with them because it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time for that to ultimately compound. So, given that, and coming back to our first market for a second, that being my very first event, it took a lot of work to really promote it, to make it something tangible, to get a lot of excitement for it. And this is something that I want to constantly reiterate that yes, entrepreneurship shouldn't feel like a hustle 24/7. But I do say that it requires hustle in various seasons. And at that time, I had not established an audience. I had not established trust. I had not established loyalty. People had no reason to want to buy into me. And I hadn't developed this evidence of this is what we're doing. This is the community we're building. This is why you should be a part of it. Right. So I still had some kind of underlying business savvy. Don't know where it came from, but it was in me. It's always been in me. And I did a lot of work to make that first event a success. I created this digital 3-page brochure that I would send out to all of my dream vendors. And what I did was not sell people on the proof because I had not established proof. I had not had markets and said, I was not able to say, oh, these are the markets that we've had. This is how successful it was. This is how many people came. I didn't have that evidence to share. I didn't have those numbers. I didn't have that data. So I sold them on the vision. And I say this to my clients and to the people in my network all the time. If you do not yet have the evidence, sell them on the vision. Because as humans, we innately want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, right? Take a look at the things that are happening around you. When things go viral, when events are on and popping. Going back to the Jesse Jean Yap Challenge. If you didn't take a listen to my episode of the Jesse Jean Yap Challenge, I'll drop that in the show notes as well. Take a look at the Jesse Jean Yap Challenge. A part of why I think a lot of people started jumping into that was because they saw a lot of people jumping into it. And people don't like to feel left out. People want to be a part of things that other people are a part of, right? We want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. So I sold these vendors on the vision. And I clearly did the work to make sure it was aesthetic, to show them that I was legit, to make sure I was like, listen, this is going to be something that I'm really pouring a lot of effort into, and I want to make sure that shows. And the vision is I want to bring more support to women entrepreneurs. I want to bring more visibility to them. I want to bring more connection to them. And for many of the women, that was a no-brainer of, yes, oh my gosh, I want to be a part of this. I love what you're doing. And we continue to get that kind of feedback today. So had the first market, had a smaller networking event, launched the directory, brought the market back the following year, and of course got the same feedback. You should do this more often. So we ended up tacking on a few more dates in 2023, and the community has continued to progress ever since then in terms of what kind of support we offer, the type of visibility that we offer. Of course, we have the directory, which we now call our Rolodex, but the more service providers we started attracting, and the more I started diving into my own love for public speaking, then the visibility kind of compound into now, how do we get more of our members on stages and into different podcasts? And how are we partnering with media publications? And there's been so many incredible organizations that we've partnered with since that first market. And even for that first market, we had at least 20 brands that were wanting to do like giveaways at that first market. And that was incredible. And we've continued to expand the way that we collaborate with other organizations today. So that not only are we able to bring them into the mix, help them like show them the vision that we're building towards and have them be a part of it. But again, we are tapping into their audience. We are borrowing that trust. We are really collapsing time in terms of creating our own credibility. And this is why I constantly talk about collaboration. This is why I constantly talk about strategic partnerships. Because when you can lock arms with someone that has already built an established audience, built an audience that trusts them, and then you can associate your name with their name, you are automatically creating this layer of trust with their audience. you are automatically creating this layer of credibility that it's not just you standing on your own anymore. You now have someone else that's vouching for you, someone that is already trusted, someone that's already respected, that's someone that has already done the work to build their audience. Now you are associating your name with theirs and being able to pull from their audience. And that's how you compress time. That's how you collapse time, because you're not doing everything on your own. And I think that could be the biggest mistake when it comes to building a business, trying to do everything on your own. And trust me, I get it. I get what that feels like. Women, Asian women especially, moms especially, we're so used to carrying it all on our own, not asking for help, being the one to carry the mental load, seeing asking for help as a weakness, when in reality, having the vulnerability enough to say, hey, I need help, that is your biggest strength. And not even just vulnerability to ask for help, but to recognize that that is your smartest move, because you should not be the one doing everything. Because the more you can delegate out or automate out, the more capacity you have to show up for the visionary work that you were meant to do, right? So we've hosted, I don't know, I literally looked on Wix today. Wix is where we have our website. And I went over to the events page. And apparently we've hosted more than 200 events, which kind of blows my mind. Virtual and in person, whether that's mastermind calls, virtual networking, virtual workshops, but also in-person events. I literally went to a co-working event today hosted by one of our members. We continue to host so many events, and I have spoken at so many events ever since I made that proclamation early 2024 that I was going to be a professional speaker. I invested into one community called Women Thrive. They had a virtual summit. They had it every single year. And that was the one and only time I've done a pay to play model when it comes to speaking. But this one felt like it was worth the investment, because I wasn't just paying for stage time. I was also paying into a community. It came with like 6 months of mentorship. And that also really opened my eyes to the power of community, to the power of mastermind rooms, and how that experience of showing up messy, having my first like keynote talk, whatever, it was like a 40-minute talk. It was probably looking back at it, it wasn't a great talk at all, because I jammed way too much information across a very broad lens in that time period. But everything is a learning lesson. And I didn't allow that to deter me from that as a career path for me, but I allowed it to deepen my love for it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be a professional speaker. And I started putting myself out there now, not only as a community builder, but as a speaker, as someone who offers keynotes, as someone who can facilitate workshops. And I would start reaching out. And ever since, I've spoken for She Is Made for More, their live conference, and for their mastermind. I've done their mastermind twice. I've offered a workshop on sponsorship. I just did one recently on visibility, whether that's like strategic outreach, PR, etc. I went over to Fresno and offered one to their mastermind community. I've spoken for BU Brand Live. I'm speaking at Powered by Women Live in next month. And of course, I've done the keynotes for our events, but I've also been able to collaborate with other organizations like Spinsters of San Francisco, like the Rose Bowl Institute. And that takes being intentional with how you're showing up, with how you're building your visibility, from both the community side to the speaking side and to now my private mentorship side. Everything comes back to visibility for me. And when it comes to private mentorship, after having built the community and having brought 100+ incredible women into the community on a monthly membership and hosting X number of events and bringing different sponsors and collaborators into these events, I know that I have an eye for this kind of thing of building your visibility, of building strategic partnerships, so that you're not the only one speaking about your brand, but that other people are speaking about it for you, so that you're not the only one marketing your event, but you have other organizations doing the marketing for you. That's the power of strategic partnerships. And when I opened up my private mentorship to support other women in building their visibility strategies, whether they're coaches, therapists, mindset coaches, product-based businesses, authors, dietitians, there's so much that goes into how are you positioning your services or products? How are you crafting your messaging? How are you layering your storytelling? And I recognized that it's not just the external work that you have to do in terms of creating your content, getting on stages, etc. There's so much behind the scenes. There's so much foundational things that we need to work on so that your visibility can compound, but also so that your visibility actually does something for you. There's a through line there. There's intention behind it. And you feel so freaking good about it. I say this over and over and over again, but even as a visibility strategist, I'm not the one that's going to tell you post 5 times a day, every day for the rest of your life, because you could be doing that. And I know for a fact there are people that have been doing that for years and have not been seeing any kind of momentum, any kind of traction, because the intention and clarity and foundation is missing behind it. And so now that's a part of the support that I offer the women that I work with, where we start at that foundational level of really, what is it that you're selling? Why is it that you're selling it? Who are you selling to? Why? And why you? And how are you doing it? How are you actually delivering on these promises that you are saying that you can offer? The transformations. We need to dive deeper into that. And if you have multiple offers, which I highly suggest you should have multiple offers so you can diversify where your revenue is coming from, how does it all fit together? Because not only do you want to get so clear on what you sell, if you have 5 different things that you sell and you're constantly showing up on socials of what am I going to sell today? What am I going to post today? Am I confusing my audience? Those are the things that we need to work on first. Because when we can get so clear on what your ecosystem looks like, your brand ecosystem of what is your core offer, your signature offer, your hero product, whatever it is that you want to call it. What is that main thing that you want to be known for? Not, I want to be known as a business coach, or I want to be known as a therapist, but specifically, what do you want to be known for? Then we can really hone in on your messaging so that you don't sound like everyone, so that you feel you are doing the work to differentiate yourself, that people aren't having to assume it. They're not having to do the research. You get to feed it to them on a silver platter and say, hey, this is who I am, and this is why I'm meant for you. And not only that, not only do you get to be more confident as you show up more, but you get to show up with more conviction, because that conviction is going to convert to confidence. That confidence that you're going to instill in your buyers is going to convert into sales. And that's the work that I do, where we get the clarity. And then based on that clarity, we create more systems for ourselves to have the capacity to show up more frequently. People tell me all the time, my gosh, you're so consistent. You're so consistent. It's not because everything lives in my head. It's because I've created the structure that allows me to be consistent. Because if I had to rely on my memory, I promise you, my memory is absolute trash. I would not have a business. But I've created the structure. I've done the work to create the structure, create the SOPs, really think about my processes, really thinking about how do I want to position myself? How do I want to be remembered? And have that always be the through line. And then from there, we layer in what is the actual visibility strategy? Who can I collaborate with? What organizations can I partner with? So I'm not the only one talking about how amazing I am. And that's what I want for you too. I want other people talking about you on your behalf. And you probably already have that, but have you thought about how do you create more structure around it? So it's not just based on crossing your fingers and good intention and hopes and prayers, but there's real incentive for the people that you're partnering with to promote you and to do so accurately and to do so in a timely manner. And for that to actually turn into something. So clearly, I feel like my energy is probably like ramped up a bit more in these last few minutes, because now I'm really talking about the work that I do, and you can tell, and I hope you can feel it, how much I love talking about these things. And I also want to say, this is something that I've been reiterating more and more and more. Your visibility as a business owner is a non-negotiable. It is a responsibility of your leadership to be visible, to be seen, to be heard. It's not a nice to have thing. It's not a maybe one day I will. maybe if this, maybe when I'm ready. You need to be doing that now. You need to be visible now, because the more people that know about you, the more they're able to invest in you, right? And if there's ever this friction when it comes to being visible, we have to remember that it's not about us. And if you're listening to this and if you're in my world, you probably are very mission driven. You are impact driven. You want to help people. You want to serve people. And you have to remember that at the end of the day, that your mission is so much bigger than any fears you have around showing up, than any imposter syndrome or doubt that can creep in. Your mission is far stronger than that. And there are people waiting for you to show up, but we have to be willing to show up in order to make the impact that we want to make. So, if you guys didn't know already, but you're smart and you've been listening to this, so clearly you know, I do offer private mentorship. This is the work that we do. This is the work that I love to do. I want to help you be known as the person that you want to be known for, whatever that looks like for you. That woman that you are 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, those are the things that we start building towards now. Every decision that you're making in this moment, from how you're creating your content, to the rooms that you're putting yourself in, to the mentors that you're investing in, those are all decisions towards that higher version of yourself, towards where you want to be and what you want your life and your business to look like. So if that's something that you're interested in, send me a DM. My DMs are always open. I'd love to chat about what that could look like. And if you want more group support, Horolo is where you need to be, because we have the most incredible women in the community. You can lean on their support. You can lean on their perspective. You can learn from the different industries that they're in and the different businesses that they've built and how they've built that. And that's a part of it too, right? Being so intentional with who you're surrounding yourself with, because you know you're not meant to do it alone. You know that doing it alone is doing yourself a disservice. So excited to see you inside the community, excited to see you in my mentorship, and I will see you all next week. Can you say bye? But before we end it, make sure you do all the things like follow, rate, subscribe, do all the things in all the places, and I'll see you next week.